So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Traci Stein, as always. So happy to be here with you. I'm so excited for our guest today for about 100 reasons, and you'll soon see why. I'm going to do a brief introduction, but then I'll let him tell you more about his exciting journey. My guest today is Scott Allan, otherwise known as the Boston Medium. So, let me tell you a little bit about Scott, and then we'll dive right into it. Scott Allan is a renowned evidential medium, and he'll help explain to those of you who might not be familiar with the term what that is in a little bit. But he's also the author of a really compelling memoir called In the Presence of Light. He's the host of the Enlightened Life podcast. He's known to many in the New England area, especially, but as the Boston medium. Scott's journey into the world of mediumship was really profound as well as unexpected, but basically a series of unexpected and sometimes chilling experiences sent Scott on a path of helping people to know that their departed loved ones actually remain quite alive and vibrant and here for us on the other side. So, without further ado, I want to hear more from you, but welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me. And I have to tell you, as I'm listening to you do this introduction, you have like the best radio voice. You really do. It's like, have you done this before? I mean, is that like your life, your career? Have you had a radio show at any time? Because this is really
Oh,
great.
thanks. I'm going to tell you a quick anecdote. But when I was growing up, I remember getting negative feedback that I had a quote deep voice for like a girl, and it's kind of funny. So I was very self conscious for a long
Yeah.
time. And yet here we are decades later. But, I've been doing this podcast for a few years and the other one, and I record guided meditations. So I'm kind of allowing myself to be myself. But thank you.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's great. That's
Thank
great.
you, and as somebody who's a very successful podcaster, I appreciate the compliment that much more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure. And we had the chance to meet
We did.
back in September at the Journey Within Church in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey.
Yes.
Which for me is like the epicenter of, spiritualism and mediumship on the East Coast. It's where, I've been gathering, I know you're new to the group this
Yes.
year, but there is a group of us from literally all over the world that meet a couple of times a year in person and then monthly, online, and it's just such a great community. So welcome to that group as a it was so nice, to get in before they shut it off because this was the last year, or this will be the last
Yeah.
group, I should.
For people who don't know what we're talking about, so Scott is a medium who's done other training, but he's done a lot of training, formal training with, among other people, Reverend Joseph Shield, who is considered to be, by other mediums, one of the best evidential mediums out there. And he has these trainings and people apply, and if they're lucky enough to make it into his teachings, his trainings, it's a 2-year journey of mentorship. It's pretty intense. And I'm newly in that in his last training group, but you're a veteran now. And you did an
Oh,
amazing demonstration. I was like, I have to
oh,
talk to this guy because it
thank
was
you.
so good.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been trying to find a video of that somewhere. I don't know. I felt like I was, like, all in during that. It was great.
So we're gonna jump around a little. It's just kind
Yeah.
of a bit of a stream of consciousness type of thing with me always. But I wanna maybe we'll start there, even though we're also gonna start at the beginning of your journey.
Mhm.
But so we were at this, pretty much week-long intensive training, long days about how to do really good evidential mediumship. You're gonna describe what evidential mediumship is and the difference between medium and psychic in a moment. But you got up there, platform mediumship, you stood at the front of the room, you opened yourself up to whoever would come through, you found the person the message was for, and I have to give you so much credit because you were so good and you were so lighthearted and so calm, and an audience member made the classic, I don't wanna say mistake, but the thing people do where they're like, "No, no, no, I can't think of it." You asked if somebody had a birthday and the spirit was telling you absolutely there was a birthday, like, right then, and they didn't get it, and those of us in the audience who had gotten to know the people, it was the woman's partner sitting right next to her.
And I didn't know it at the time, and
No, how
somebody
could you?
after I sat down, they said, "It's his birthday." I said, "Oh, come on." You know? Oh my god, it was funny.
But that happens all the time, I feel like, where people are like, "No, doesn't make sense," and then it's like, you know that commercial from, like, I don't know if you remember, but, like, "I could have had a V8," where you're like,
Yeah,
bonk yourself on the
yeah,
head like, "Oh, I coulda had a V8, like, I should have picked up on that."
yeah, 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 it's we call it psychic amnesia. And, it's so funny because I do a lot of events, a lot of, we call it, like platform mediumship. And I do a lot of those. And I get emails. Oh God, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of times I'll get an email the next day and say, I really think that was this person. And I didn't connect the dots at the time. I thought it might have been that person. It was this person. So it's really kind of interesting. We're sometimes so focused on who we want to come in that we sometimes miss the people who are coming in.
100%. Or there might actually be something even about a person we don't that we know well, but we don't know everything. And then we find
That's
out later. And I feel like it only makes it even more compelling and convincing.
absolutely
I have a
right.
story about that later, maybe I'll tell you. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, but there are all kinds of stories like that just happen, with a lot of us. You just and that And, you talk about evidential mediumship. I mean, that's really where it starts, right? You don't know anything going in, so you're trusting that what you're getting is real. And I may not be making sense of it, but it's there. I trust that what I'm getting pertains to that person in some way. If you don't mind me
No,
sharing, I had a
please.
reading with someone last year who was sitting here in front of me in person. Her grandfather came in and he kept talking about a fender bender, and I could see it play out in front of me. It was like, it's like watching a movie, and it's this little uh bump and scrape in the parking lot kind of thing. I don't know the significance of it at all, but she says, I don't understand that. Like, I didn't have an accident.
And you're saying fender bender specifically.
Well, that is what's interesting, is that that maybe is not. I might have, like if it was Scott talking, I would have said, "Did you have a little accident in the supermarket parking lot?" Right? That's probably what I would have said. But somehow, and you have to look at everything. It's the
Yeah.
mannerism, the words. It's like this. It's a fender bender, and I'm seeing it as a fender bender, but I'm saying fender bender, and she's saying, "No, I didn't have an accident. I didn't have anything like that." So he'll keep hammering me with it throughout the reading, but she's like, I wish I knew. So she goes home and she asks her sister, "Did you have an accident recently? Like a small little thing, I knew it wasn't a big thing." She says, "No, why?" "Well, Grandpa came through and he was talking about this fender bender that he had, and like I have no idea. Like a lot of the stuff made sense. I just couldn't claim it." And she says, "Oh my God, don't you remember when we were kids? His boat was called the Fender Bender.
That's
That was the name of the
insane.
boat." And and she reached out to me the next day, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, that's just crazy." Like, I wasn't thinking boat. It's not my message.
No, I mean,
No.
and that it's so uncanny, but those are the things that stick with like, people think you're gonna come through with, like, somebody's Social Security number, highly unlikely, but things like the fender bender thing and somebody who has a boat, first of all, named Fender Bender, you can't I don't know, that's not even Googleable.
No, and you're right, 100%, 100%. Last night, I had an event last evening, and I was reading one woman, and then two people next to her. Like right at the end of the reading, I said, "Oh my God, I've got somebody who drowned." But I said, "I don't think I'm with you." I said, "Who are you here with?" And she says, "I'm here with these people." I said, "I'm right in that area, like somebody right here." I'm getting the woman raises her hand, like three people down. They weren't together, but she was in the same row, like three people over. When I was 18, my best friend was drowned, and and so, okay, don't tell me anymore. And whatever I said to her, I said to her. She's like, "I can't imagine. Like, I'm so grateful to hear from him, but I can't imagine he would have come through because it's like she was almost 60. So, you're going back, a long ways." And all of a sudden, it's like they take over your mouth. And I said, "Carl, who's Carl?" "That's him. That's his name." I
Oh
said,
my
"Well,
god.
I said, "Then now you know, right? I mean, that's him." And you can't Google somebody's friend from 50 years ago
No,
or 40 years ago.
pre-internet and so minimally, like, again, not their place of birth or something, you know? Crazy.
You just can't. I mean, it's unbelievable. But, I don't know about you, but, I dealt with a fair amount of imposter
Oh
syndrome,
my god.
because it's like, first of all, it's like all over the place, and we can talk about that, which was the whole book thing. But then you learn to control it, and it sort of turns it off, and you're like, well, maybe I just imagined it. Maybe it's not real, Then you have to learn to trust all over again. And that's when the magic happens, really.
And it honestly, I was thinking this today, it's so funny that you say that, but not surprising, because I was thinking today, this is one of these things that tells you magic is real, because as kids, we grow up and we think, especially if we have any sort of psychic or mediumistic experiences or something that is so transformative, and even if we don't, right? It's like this idea that there's something super normal, like as Dean Radin would say it, that's possible. And and that gets so conditioned out of us that we feel ashamed to think it's possible. But as we connect with people who've passed on and get details there's no way to get, that's magical. And it's potentially so transformative for the person hearing the message.
It really is. And I'll just say too, Joe Shield, who we were just talking about a
Yeah,
moment ago, hates that word magic. I use it because it's magical, but it's not magic like a magic trick. It's not a
right.
parlor trick.
No.
And I tell this to people, like, it's not like I can do this 25 times in a row and it will be exactly the same like a magic trick over and over and over and over. It's so different and it's so nuanced, and it depends on who I'm sitting with and who's coming through and what kind of day you had and the personality of the person coming in. All of that stuff matters, you
Oh my
know?
god, yeah.
Yeah. So all of it
100%.
matters.
100%. I'm okay with the word magical because I think I understand how I mean it and how you mean it. And I
Sure.
understand why Joe has the objection,
Yep.
and I can sit with all those things. Um, Scott, before we go on, just because I mean, I've had a handful of other mediums and psychics on the show, but most, it's been a broad range of guests that I've had. So if you could take a second and just talk about the difference between a psychic and a medium, and then talk about evidential mediumship, because I
Sure.
don't feel like every medium practices the same way.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I feel everyone is psychic to a certain degree. We all have that intuition. You know who's answering, who's on the phone before you answer it. You get those moments like, geez, I just feel funny about something. That's all psychic intuition. I can teach you how to play chopsticks on the piano, but you may not be Chopin. You may not be a concert pianist. And so we all have some ability. It's what you do with it and how much of it you have, right? Everyone who is a medium is a psychic. Not everyone who is a psychic is a medium. A medium is a whole different, like another level up. Mediums are the ones that can communicate with others on the other side. Not all psychics can do that, but if you're a medium, you are a psychic. You know, Also, I feel like as a medium, if I do a psychic reading, I can just do a psychic reading. I feel like if you're psychic and you do a psychic reading and you're not a medium, you may need tarot cards or some other form of divination. And, and that's okay. You know what I mean? They've obviously honed their psychic skills that they can use them in that way. I just think that mediums and psychics, even though they are all psychic, the medium it's a little extra level there that perhaps, just the traditional psychic doesn't have. Evidential mediumship to me is where it's at. And I really don't know how anybody else works. I know about the people who I work with, and even between us, we'll get information differently. You've heard about the Claires, but I think with mediums, evidential medium to me is really bringing through absolute positive proof that that person is in the room with us. And it's like painting them back to life in the ideal. I think I did that when I was in New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Not every message, not every reading is exactly like that. And sometimes it's a little less. It's the energy of the room, it's the energy of the people that you're sitting with, it's the energy of the person coming in, it's their religious affiliations, were they blocked, are they in grief? I mean, all of these things play into it. And that's why you say it's just not cookie cutter, but it's really about bringing through evidence that says there's no way you would know that. There's no way you would know that that boat was called a fender bender, or my best friend in high school was named Carl and he drowned. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
no way to know that. Where is it coming from? That's the evidence. And a really good medium worth his or her weight can just do that and not they will tell you, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to hear anything. In fact, if you tell me something, it will throw me off. I need to be completely objective so that I can channel and bring through what I'm getting without feeling like my brain is getting in the way.
And just kind of describe it, give it as you get it.
Yeah. And for me, people will say, "Well, what do they look like?" Well, sometimes I get that, but a lot of times I don't even think I see them as they were, but rather how I need to understand them. You know?
Yeah.
They show themselves as very thin and emaciated. Oh my god, they were so sickly, but they may not have looked like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They may not have looked like that. And there are certain symbols and things that they show me when I'm doing my readings to help me describe them. But again, you may not recognize them if I were to draw a picture of that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
100%. You're making me think of something. This is a little bit of a digression, but, for several years, I wouldn't call myself like I'm not a professional anything intuitive. Just because my professional life is different, but certainly it pervades every area of my life. But, for several years, I've studied with various remote viewers. And for people who don't know, that's the kind of military kind of developed very structured way of getting psychic information, and some people can do mediumship with that. It's just a very different protocol. But the thing with remote viewing that I think applies in a way to evidential mediumship, it's that you don't want to be front loaded if at all possible, because it makes it a lot harder to trust what's coming through. So you don't want somebody to tell you, "Oh, the target is, my friend Joe in Connecticut on Wednesday because he has a job interview." I mean, you just want like the target is a person on a specific date, describe the person.
Mhm.
And literally that's all you need for that connection to be made. And it's kind of mind-blowing, but um the idea also to describe like what you notice rather than working so hard to interpret it, because sometimes our interpretation, I mean, I know it, uh, for people who are listening, like, what you've alluded to is, like, you have this kind of lexicon, this kind of bank of images and things that you have associations to, that's your psychic shorthand. So if somebody shows it to you, you have a sense of what it means beyond the literal. Like, if
Right.
your friend Kathy was a huge coffee drinker, maybe you'll see that if the person was, like, having 10 cups of coffee a day. But it's not we're overworking to try to create a story. You're letting them the people on the other side create the narrative, and you're relaying the information. And that's part of what's so key about this.
And as soon as you get your brain involved and start trying to interpret what the message is, you're probably going to be wrong every single time. It's just you
Yes.
can't, So I hate it, when people will start asking me questions. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Now I'm thinking I will always be wrong. So I usually say, please hold the questions until we get to the end, because I need to just let the channel not be broken. Tell you an interesting story. Sometimes for me, we talk about the images and the signs that we get. Sometimes it's not even like that. It's like they impregnate a memory
Yes.
in my brain that's not mine. And so I just kind of know something. I had a reading recently with someone, young man coming through, younger, I mean, like probably 40s, coming through. I don't remember all the details, but there were a couple of things. One is I remember saying to him, there are some really bad guys around him, like really bad people. And they're like, yeah. And I said, and he's kind of a mystery. That was the word I use. Like, I don't feel like I know him that well. He's out and then he's in, and then he's out and he's a mystery, but then he's back in, and he's loving and he's a family man, but then he's missing. And like all of this stuff, I have no idea what this means, right? And you probably don't. You're just getting that information, right? Like, I don't know what this means. And they looked at me. Yeah, he was a Secret Service officer, and he couldn't share what he did with his wife. He was around really bad people
Ooh,
all the time, and he would go away on these missions with them, or whatever they call it, and they couldn't really know what he was doing because it was secret. And so that was the mystery. But I don't have to understand that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not up to me. They got it. You know what I mean?
holy cow.
But it's like, holy cow, I was right, you know?
'Cause, it's like the percentage of people that that message would apply to, extraordinarily small. If you were gonna try and guess, that wouldn't be what you would come up with. It just wouldn't be.
You can't
You
guess
can't
that
guess that.
and be right. You can't guess it
No,
and be right, you know? And the whole imposter thing, it's like, okay, I don't really do that so much anymore, but if you think, well, am I imagining it? How can you can't imagine this all day long and be right with that level of detail. And
God, no.
that's what evidential mediumship is. It's that kind of thing.
100%.
I had someone leave a message for me, and it drives me crazy. I have to shut my office phone off in the middle of the night because they call all over. They don't care. They think I'm Miss Cleo 900 number, 24 hours. He's like, "I'd like you to call me back." This is 3:30 in the morning, and, I didn't get it till the next day. I said, "I'd like you to call me back because I'd like to have a psychic reading, but I'm not gonna leave you my number because you should know it. You're psychic." Yeah.
That's an appointment that it's okay to miss, I think.
You definitely didn't lose any sleep over it that night, I can tell you. It's so funny, but people are just wacko, you
Oh my
just
goodness.
that's
It's and
even when you
yeah, I mean, come
I was
on.
just thinking you gotta be mainstream. You it attracts that element from time to time. Then you get the other ones who are just so incredibly grateful for the connection, and it's wonderful, you know?
No, 100%. I think that's a good place for us to talk about your earlier part of your journey because, I feel like everybody has a different path to this. I know some people do where they're having experiences from childhood, some people come by this later, but you've spent the better part of your life trying to help comfort people and give them a sense of ease to the extent that that is possible when they've lost a loved one. Do you wanna talk about that?
No. Yes, I do. I was a funeral director for many, many years, and when I say many, like, next year it'll be 43 years. So, long time. I no longer do the work. I sold quite a few years ago now, but I had been doing it and working around the funeral home from the time I was 16, and it started out, mowing lawns and, washing cars and that kind of stuff. But I always say, over all those years, I saw thousands of dead people, literally, and not one of them talked to me. And it's sort of like that's the humorous line, but it's true though. You know what I mean? Like, it's true. This world didn't open up to me until after the fact. Now, if I look back, I can see there were moments, right? And you're reading the book. So there were moments when I worked at the funeral home and they said, "Can you help me go?" And I was talking about who pronounced him? Like, who pronounced this guy? You know what I mean? Like, why are they, why are we just going if no one's pronounced them? And he couldn't give me a good answer. And before we get out the door, they call back and say, "Sorry, we found a breath, don't come." I mean, that stuff happened to me. Now, was it coincidence? Maybe that one time, but then there was the other time, and then there was the other time, and then there was the other time. But I never put them together because I was very left brained, and I kept thinking, "Mm, that's just
So
coincidence.
just to clarify for people, you're working at the funeral home. You don't yet own it, but you've been working there for a while. You and your boss get a call that someone has passed away.
Yeah.
And now you have to go and, I guess, pick up this person's
Yeah.
body
Bring
and
him back
bring
to the
him back to the funeral home. And the only time this happens to you, you get a nagging feeling. How do we know this person's dead? Who pronounced him dead at the scene? Were the police there? Whatever. And I remember in the book, your boss is irritated with you. Like, what kind of a question is that? And you both go to get in the car, and the call comes through.
and says, "Don't come.
And
We found a breath."
the person was breathing. And the person actually did pass away later at the
Yeah.
hospital, I guess. But that's uncanny.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's never happened to me since. I mean, that was a one and done thing. Never happened before, ever. I can't, but that particular day, I had that nagging sensation. I don't know if you read the story about the man that died with the woman in the nursing home. They were a couple. I don't know if you read that.
Yes, please tell
It
that
was the
story because
same
that
kind.
was crazy. I have to take a quick break, but I'll return in a few moments with more on unpacking possibility. Stay tuned.
So we got called one night.
Before
Um,
you know you're intuitive.
Before, yeah, I didn't know anything at the time. It was just, I started to feel like, oh, geez, maybe there were moments I was like, maybe I'm psychic, but it was more like laughing. We got a call one day that this husband had passed away. They were in a nursing home together. They both needed care. They put him in the same room in the same nursing home. So when we got there, the wife was still with him, sitting with him, and gave her a chance to say goodbye and do what she did. And they took her and they brought her into some other room, down the hall. So the man I worked for said, "Would you get his teeth and his glasses?" And they would always put them together, the teeth in the little jar and then the glasses in a bag or something. So I said to the nurse, I said, where do you keep them or where are they? I didn't know where she had them. She said, "They're in his nightstand. They're like right over by the window." So I went over and I opened the drawer and I took them out. And it was the same weird thing. I said, "How do you know they're his?" She says, "Well, that's his nightstand and this is her nightstand. And we do keep everything separate." I said, "Oh, great. Okay, perfect." So
How
we
do you know
took
they're
them.
his teeth?
How do we know they're his teeth?
And not something you typically asked.
I don't think so. Not unless there were 4 pairs there. That was it. But this was the only pair in the drawer. You know what I mean? That was it. So we got back to the funeral home and I'm taking things out and I have the teeth. And I said to myself, I didn't, like, I don't think these are his. Like, I don't know why. They just felt off. And I looked at them. I mean, I can't tell male teeth from female teeth, I don't think, but it just felt like they're not his. But I'm not going down that road because I remember what happened when we talked about the guy with the breath, right? Like he was a paratrooper on D-Day.
Oh,
He
wow.
landed on the beach. He was like real nice guy, but like no nonsense. You know what I mean?
It's your
Just like,
boss.
yeah, like there's no time for this kind of like weird stuff. So you just gotta
Just do it.
do
Just do the job.
it. So I didn't say anything. So we had the calling hours and oh, I don't know if I put this in the book, but it was funny. I remember he told me during the embalming procedure, he was putting the teeth back in her mouth,
In the husband's mouth.
in his
Sorry.
mouth, right? In the husband's mouth. Yeah. And he's like, he said to me, they don't fit right. I think he lost too much weight or something like that. You know what I mean? Like the teeth don't feel right.
Which could
And
happen.
yeah, which could happen. So he took them and he put them back in the jar and he put them under the pillow. But it stuck with me because I'm like, that's kind of a weird thing. Maybe that was it. Maybe it's just that he lost a lot of weight and they don't feel fit right. So the calling hours, she comes in, they're wheeling her in a wheelchair. And I'm standing at the door and she looks at me and she grabs my hand. She says, "Thank you so much." And she looks up and she's smiling. And I'm looking at the Grand Canyon. I mean, there's like
There's no
nothing
teeth.
there. And I went, and she says, "Guess what? They gave you my teeth." And the daughter says, "Yeah, because I put them in the wrong drawer after we getting things together, and I put them in his or in hers and not his or whatever it was. You know what I mean? I swapped them. I put hers in his drawer. I mean, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Really?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It's so interesting because my question now, knowing that you're a medium, which you didn't know then,
Mm.
I don't know if that's the husband telling you those aren't my teeth and you're perceiving that, or if it's psychically you just know that this is the wrong thing. And I don't know if it even matters, but you're clearly awakening even though you are not somebody who's had psychic experiences since you were in the crib. You know, you're not that you're aware of. You
Mm.
probably were picking up on things, but not like
Yeah,
a dead parade of people in your dreams or in your room or, seeing
but it's
ghosts.
funny because I always knew who I liked and who I didn't. And, people would say, "You're just too judgmental," or "You're too," you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't, it doesn't feel that way. It's like, it isn't that I don't like them. It's that I don't feel like I'm going to like them. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I just feel like, if I get to know them, I won't like them. And I already don't feel like I need to get to know them. And it's a weird thing. You know what I mean? I knew when people would say things about me or if they were good to me or if I just knew what kind of person I was dealing with. And very early age, I would cut those people out because I didn't like the energy around them. And I didn't call it that. This is my trained brain calling it that. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was back then.
It's so interesting, though. It does feel like when I was reading your book, by the way, which really is so compelling, and I highly recommend everybody read it. And we'll put a link in the show notes for you and for your book, most definitely. But it's such an honest book, and it is so engaging. And throughout your journey, it really does feel like there are these different things that kind of looking back seem like they pulled you along a path. Like, actually, something early on in your book, you talked about your friend who passed, who, had a serious medical issue, recovered, but then passed later. And even though that maybe wasn't the start of mediumship, it was certainly the start of your realizing how important it was to treat people with dignity throughout their life process, including after they pass. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I don't think it really had a me any of the part of the foundation of mediumship. I don't think that
Right.
was part of it, but it was part of that point where I was acutely aware of the feelings that I had that others did not seem to have. And it wasn't just the one with my friend. It was when I went in with my grandfather at 10 years old into the funeral home and I could just feel the emotions of this family that they weren't even there yet. But it was strange. Like I shouldn't have had that at 10 years old, right? So my friend John had battled cancer as a child. When he was 10, he was diagnosed. He had it in his lung and his bone. And they cured him. I mean, he was cancer free, and he went, and that was it. They did remove his leg, but he went on to live, a pretty normal life until he was 20, and it came back with a vengeance. And I don't want to give away the whole thing, but I
Yeah.
had a very bad experience with the funeral home, and it's in the book. I wrote about it in the book. Family had asked me to be there and sort of work as an attendant at the funeral because I was in the business at that point. I wasn't licensed yet. I was still in school for it, but I had a bad experience with the owner. The owner was not the best, let's just say. And I do go into more detail in the book, but I almost dropped out. Like emotionally, it was like overwhelming. And I think it taught me a lot about compassion because I think, one of the first things I say in the book is, I've always been where I was supposed to be, even if I didn't recognize it at the time, because all of that was like training for doing what I do now. And if you think about it, it's all the same people, you know?
Yes.
It's the same empathy, it's the same compassion, It's the same loved ones with the same people who passed. It's just that instead of working for the family because of their loved ones who passed, I work for their loved ones who passed for the sake of their family. It's just swapped because they just want you to know that they're okay. That's it. You know, um, I don't, I really think all of that. And I was all in with the funeral business. I was on the board of directors of the Massachusetts Funeral Directors Association. I own 3 funeral homes, and I really, I really was ingrained in it and became somewhat disillusioned. And I think it was part of that empathy thing. But I became very disillusioned with people's ideas, not necessarily how they mourned or how they grieved or how they, but it was, when you're dead, you're dead. Mm,
Like,
I don't
that's
feel
it.
like that. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, because we're not dead, and it's about compassion. It's about understanding that this is, even though they've moved on, it's still a person. I remember once someone was being cremated, and I asked them to bring in some clothes. I said, because I'll dress them before. Well, what do you need to do that for? I said, because they've got to be viewed by the medical examiner and the crematory personnel. When you're dead, you're dead. I was like floored.
Oh,
This is
wow.
your mother. And I'm trying to give her an ounce of dignity. And I mean, I'm not lecturing them. I'm like thinking this in my brain, but I'm trying to give her an ounce of dignity. Why are you fighting me on this? This shouldn't be happening. And it happens so frequently that it really started to settle with me, and I didn't realize that at the time, that that was also part of the empathic part of who I was. Like, I just had a difficult time turning that off. So when I finally got out, I thought, well, I don't have to sacrifice my values anymore. I sold it, I'm done, I move on, and that's it. But that was just the beginning.
It's really such a remarkable journey that you've had, and of course, much more to go on this journey. But it's been such an interesting path. And I like, again, we won't give away what's in the book, but I like that you talk about your work as a funeral director and that part of your journey and kind of how it has ultimately led you or been an important part of the path for what you're doing now, because it's something we don't normally talk about. In fact, I feel like in America especially, we do a terrible job about talking about death and dying and what happens to us, just even in healthcare. I
Mhm.
can't tell you how unskilled a lot of people are or unprepared to have hard conversations for the one thing that is inevitable. It's kind of crazy.
People are afraid of it, and people will hide their children from it because they think their children can't handle it. When in reality, it is you that cannot handle it. Therefore, you protect your children from
Yeah.
it. The children don't come in with preconceived notions of anything. But if you sit and explain to them what's happened, and again, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether you have a wake for 4 days or you have a direct cremation. It doesn't matter. It's not about that. It is a part of what we go through. It is terrible. It is difficult. It is awful, but it is absolutely going to happen to everybody in terms of you will experience a loss. And if you come into this world, you will lose someone that you love. If you live any length of time. So we don't approach it very well.
No.
Really don't. We don't help our children to deal with it. We prepare them for everything, but we don't prepare them for that. And I think it's kind of I think we're missing the boat on that a little bit, really and truly.
I think that's a good segue to another question I have for you because, in your work as a medium, and I know people come for all kinds of reasons. I mean, of course, when they're grieving, sometimes out of curiosity, I'm sure. But is there a session that comes to mind? And if it doesn't, that's okay. But is there a session that comes to mind or something you learned for yourself where you were like, okay, this has changed this person's life? Like, having had this experience has changed something fundamentally, it's profoundly healing.
Yeah. Let me say this. I do try to forget everything
Yeah, of
that I read.
course.
And I do try to forget, not mainly because if they come back to me, I don't wanna do it from memory,
Yeah.
right? I have to do it f but I know there have been moments where people have come to me and said, "I have been waiting to hear this for so long," whatever it is, and it has made a huge difference. We really, when I say we, me and the people I work with and around and associate with, really come at this from such a point of compassion and authenticity. I am not here to talk about the way that anybody else does it, but it does not have to be like what you see at Halloween. It's not that.
100%.
It's not the Salem witches and all this other stuff. What you see is what you get. And when you're dealing with someone who's authentic and real, and look, we all get the crazy calls. I get the trolls on social media, and just
Oh
like
my
everybody,
god.
but you can't let it dissuade you from what you do, from the good work you do, because I think the world needs really good mediums. And there are some incredible mediums out there who are doing some really good work, but it's all based in compassion and understanding and help. You just want to be there as someone that can guide them. And that's how it was as a funeral director. And that's how it is now. So when that person says to you, like, my God, you really have changed my life, I understand that. Breaking barrier. I'll give you this one just popped into my head.
Okay.
This was a public event, and it was a dinner type show. And I brought through this young man who I can't remember the details, if it was an automobile accident or what. I don't remember what it was. But in the audience was his sister and his mother.
Mm.
And it was emotional. You could see. I mean, they were, it was tough. Lose a kid, use your brother. It was rough. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, "I just want you to know something. I was planning to take my life."
The sister?
The sister said, "I would have done it within a week. This has changed my life because I know he's okay." And I don't remember what the messages were that came through. I don't think it's important, but it was
Yeah.
just, she got that sense that, look, I'm okay and you will be okay. And I'm here with you.
Oh my god, I'm feeling, like, teary myself just hearing it.
And that blew my mind because it actually scared me a little bit, to be honest with you. It kind of did. You don't realize how delicate some of these people are that you're working with. It's the truth. It's the truth.
Oh my goodness. No, but it again, it's so compelling. Not even sure where I'm going with this part, but, I lost a close friend. I've lost several close friends over the years, it's just what happens, and a close friend of mine passed away a little over 2 years ago, and I'm still close with his husband, but, touching on something that we talked about a few minutes ago, earlier this year, I think I asked him, like, because it's a delicate thing, even though we're close, and even though I'm a psychologist and I've worked with very seriously ill people before, it's still different when it's your friend, and I said, "Had you ever talked about what Mark thought would happen to him after?" And because my friend Mark has come through many times through several different mediums, including with stuff that there was no way anybody could know. I didn't know until I shared the reading with his husband, who said, "Oh, well, actually XYZ," and I was like, "Holy cow!" Because knowing him as well as I did, I still didn't know this very specific thing.
Yeah.
Um, but for him, I mean, his grief was overwhelming. My friend was not even 54 when he passed after a long battle with illness where get treatment, do so much better, seems like the cancer is gone, and then it isn't, and then it comes back. Um, and I think my friend's husband had never explored this before he lost his husband. And he's not a person who's into psychic phenomena. He's not going to be going for the next 10 years to every medium that's out there. But he
Sure.
got, because it's just not his thing. It's my thing. It's not his thing.
Right.
But I think it was transformative in his healing process because I think the things that people came through with and the compassion that they were able to hold for him, I think was enough for him to say, I know Mark is still alive, and I know he wants me to be okay. And all that kinda ties into something you said much earlier in the episode about what Joe Shield says, because this is I never thought about this in this way before our group meeting in September, is that Joe said that, like, we, like mediums, work for the spirits of the people who come to see us, not for the people who come to see us, and I'd never ever thought about it that way, but that was so profound, and I have to say, knowing my friend Mark, I know that his husband's pain was probably unbearable for him, so even though the readings were for John, I think they were also for Mark. He had to get that message through, and he's come through to several people, he's given signs to friends, but it's transformative in a way that I think faith alone often, can't adequately address. I know that was
True.
long, but
No, but you're 100%. You're 100% right. And I feel like it takes some of the pressure off, and you get to pay the bill, but I'm not working for you. I work for them. And I don't say it like that, but that's really, if you can when you're learning to trust and open up, that's really it. Is they're going to tell me what you need to know because they know better than me. They know better than you what you need, and they're going to give it to you. But I'm going by them. And if they don't want to tell you something, they're not going to tell me. Or if they don't want to tell me, they're not going to tell me. They'll tell me what they want to tell me, and that's it.
100%. That actually brings me to another question I think people are probably curious about. Because I know you've addressed before, like, whether everybody can be read by every medium, and I know you'll address we know it, but I want you to address it. And then, how come sometimes our loved ones don't come through? The person we wanna hear from, because I get asked that a lot, actually.
So one of the things that I feel, and this is me, okay, but I think that people who say they can read anybody. Who do you want to talk to today, Tracy? Do you want to talk to your grandma? Oh, hold on. I'll go get her. I don't trust that. I don't trust that. I can't bring people through. And I don't think I'm that much different than anybody else. I just don't think it works that way. Like, I don't think anybody has the number, right, to call in. I think whoever comes through. And sometimes it's just intention. So you hoping, waiting, speaking to them in the car on the way over and saying, please, so and so come through for me because I really need to speak to you. That might just be enough. More often than not, they will. But there are some people who can't or don't come through. And I say can't. I shouldn't say can't. They can. I think grief is such a huge block to having a reading. And you would think, right, that if you are in a state of grief and you have, uh, a loved one on the other side, well, they would want to help you heal, right? So they'd want to come through. It's not that they're not there. It's that grief is like driving a car in the fog. The road is still underneath you, but you just can't see it. And I feel like that's how it is. Your loved one is still here, but they can't see it. I had a reading with a woman that wanted to connect with her husband in such a huge way. She wanted to believe that he was okay. So she came with her, I don't know if it was son or daughter, I can't remember. She wouldn't let the son or daughter say anything. And so I'm trying to get validation. I'm not going to tell you anything. Well, I need to know who I'm dealing with here. Like, what do you understand and what you don't understand? And then the son or whoever it was said, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah." So she goes, "Yeah." Psh. And so I finally said, I can't get anything for you. Well, why? Why not? Why can you? I see all your reviews. You can read for everybody, but not me because you have me. I'm not blocked. She says. I said, you're blocked. You're blocked. You're blocking me because you think you're trying to keep something from me, and you're in such a state of grief that it can't happen. So these things can be a real hindrance to having a really good reading. It's just sometimes it just doesn't happen.
And just to clarify for people who are listening, because you're not asking someone to tell you, all about Aunt Sadie and, where she lived and that she liked to crochet. You're saying, "I'm coming through with a woman who says her name is Sadie, and I see her crocheting. Does this make sense to you? Yes or no?"
And they don't want to, she didn't want to say yes. And that's
Right.
exactly, she didn't want to tell me yes or no. You should know that. Well, I'm telling it to you. I just need to know if you
I
understand.
did just come through with the information.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's just it's interesting. What was the other question you had? There was something about
Um, just I think you just answered it actually, but how come sometimes specific loved ones don't come through?
yeah, I really think that's it. I think it's where you are. If you're in an acute state of grief, some mediums will say, "Well, wait a year." Well, honestly, you could wait 20 minutes. I think they would come through. I don't think you have to wait a year. I think it's where you are.
Yeah.
You have to be in the right frame of mind. Um, Also, if you got in a fight with your spouse, that might be a hindrance. Your brain is somewhere else. If I just got bad news, I might not be able to do my job properly because my head's somewhere else. And you're trying to like pull yourself out. It's that subtle and it's that nuanced that it's like kind of like everything has to sort of line up, and most of the time it does. But if you're in a different space, different headspace, forget it. It can really change everything.
Like with any job. I mean, if you're a singer going on stage, or if you're, even as a therapist, like I got to really work. It's I'm not going to be as good if I am really preoccupied with my own grief or my own something. But you're making me think of something too. So I know someone who lost her father a few years ago. Really, so much unresolved grief. She actually gets signs from him, I'm gonna say almost daily, like these little specific symbols she sees everywhere, and I don't think it's just that she's finally noticing them. I think that she actually is getting these. But she said to me, "How come I'm every night I'm like, Dad, just come through from in my dream, and why isn't he coming through?" And it was really bothering her, and I said, "Honestly, I mean, this is what comes to mind is that I think if he did I think he knows that you wouldn't wanna get up. You would wanna stay asleep and keep dreaming if you were having those experiences because you long for them so much. You're still in such grief. I think to some extent our loved ones know, like, we're supposed to be living in this world. We're not supposed to be dedicating all of our energy and time and focus to connecting with deceased loved ones. They want us to keep living. Like, that's our task.
They do. But I also feel like if your dad comes to you tomorrow, walks in the door and sits down with you and starts speaking to you in Spanish, would you say to him, "Stop speaking Spanish. I want you to speak French." Well, I'm speaking to you in Spanish. Deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, why do you want me to speak French? I feel like it's that way. Yeah, you're getting all these signs, so I didn't come to you in your dreams. I mean, but I've given you this sign and this sign and this sign. Why do I have to come and do that as well? But there's also the other thing. Maybe you just need to train yourself to remember.
Yeah.
I always say keep a little notepad by your bureau, by your nightstand, and just wake up in the morning, first thing, just write down what you remember, even if it's one or two words. And then it's like training yourself to remember. But I don't get a lot of dream stuff. I've had a dream of my mom once. It was a lucid dream. So I do this work and I don't get it like that. So, I will tell you how I get my signs. I always have to ask for them, not free with them. Um, but if I say, I really need to hear from you, I'll get it. And it's always her name. And it's usually I would say within an hour after I ask.
Wow.
And I don't ask all the time. I don't ask every day. But I remember when we were in New Jersey, I went to Starbucks around the corner and I ordered a coffee uh, before my before we were meeting in the morning. And when I got there, I had ordered it, and there was a cup there with my name on it, and hers. There was another one next to it with her name on it. Like literally, they were side by side. And I had said to her this morning, "I could really use a sign. I'm having one of those moments. If you could
Aw.
just let me know you're okay." And there it was, you know. And I waited to see who it was that picked up the mug, picked up the cup. It wasn't her, but really. But it was that. It was just that. It's always her name. It's always the name. So, you gotta take it the way it's given to you. because we don't get to dictate that either.
That's such a good point. Scott, I could talk to you for hours, but I want to be mindful of your time. And I also want to let people know that you and I are going to be speaking again in a few weeks on my other podcast, Curious Explorers. We will delve into some of the other things
Mm.
that are in your book that are more relevant to that podcast. So I hope people tune in, and I'll definitely put information in the show notes. But before I let you go back to your day, I want to ask you two things. One, is there anything that we didn't cover that we should have? And what's coming up, events? How can people reach you? And anything else you want to share?
Yeah, so my website is kind of the best place to find everything that I've got going on. It's mediumscottallan.com, or you can just go to the Boston Medium or bostonmedium.com. That's nice and easy if you don't know how to spell the other name. Bostonmedium.com will take you right at the same place. And there you can find out about my book. You can find out about my private readings if you want one. You can book them directly online. So I do a lot of them virtually like this, or in person if you happen to be in my area. I'm in the Boston area, but I read for people all over the place virtually. I also have a ton of events. So I'm everywhere. It feels like I've got events booked up and down the East Coast,
I love it.
from you know, from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. I mean, all the way into, South Carolina and Georgia and Florida. And I'm going to be in Colorado the beginning of
Oh,
November. I've got
wow.
events, Colorado Springs and Castle Rock. So wherever your people are, I might be near them somewhere. I don't know. But I am grateful for that. And I would love to have you join me at one of my events. You can do that all from my website.
That's awesome. That's so great, and I'm gonna put everything in the show notes. Um, I can't tell you, I loved watching you do your mediumship, platform mediumship, not for the faint of heart to do it, because you really gotta trust the information, and honestly, what came through you was really incredible.
I appreciate
So
that.
I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that. Scott, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out. I remember we chatted there a little bit that day. Thank you so much for that. It's been a joy, and I'm looking forward to the next
Oh
one.
my God, yes. And again, your book, In the Presence of Light, people can find out more on your website, and I'm assuming getting it
Yes,
wherever
yes. Whoops, there it is.
books are sold.
I don't know if it's backwards, but there it is. It's backwards for me. I don't know
Oh,
if it's
it's
backwards.
it's it's looking perfect for me.
Oh, good, good, good. Yeah, yeah. In the presence of light. It's a funeral director's journey from mourning to mediumship. It's Mourning. But yeah, and Joe Shield wrote the forward.
Beautiful.
Mentor. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful.
So very grateful for that.
Well, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
This has been another episode of Unpacking Possibility. If you enjoyed the episode, and I know you did, please remember to like, share, follow, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And as always, until next time, be well.